Okay, family. This is your soul brother Talib back at you. A few hours ago, a little earlier, yesterday afternoon, I was on a live podcast. You know, and with soul brother, number one soul brother Angel Snup Snup Seven, and our sister Noble Levine, and also our other panel host, Dr. Omar Shamsuddin, and we were talking about, how, racism is permeating throughout the whole of all America equally as it is in the South. And along with what I was discussing, which was the experience I'm going through living here in the Midwest, here in Nebraska, dealing with the same issues with racism and all that other good stuff, and how that experience has had an impact on me as far as being here around majority of people who don't look like me. I'm starting to see, that it's definitely necessary that black people need to relocate back to the South. Like this brother who came out with this book called The Devil You Know, what it's called here. Let me see. I got to see. A Black Power Manifesto by Charles M. Blow, which is a copy I got and that I bought recently from a local bookstore here in town. And and he basically talks along the same talking point lines that we do from the Operation Exodus Mississippi campaign platform. And I just want to just iterate and add on to the chapter saga of this situation, of why we as indigenous black Americans need a sanctuary state as a safe haven where we can be protected, and why women and children could be protected as well from the onslaught of racism, discrimination, gerrymandering, and, re- redistricting and gentrification and mass incarceration and all the other additives that come along with racism that has impacted us as a people for over 400 years in this country, and why it's necessary that we establish a safe haven, like starting with the control of the politics in the state of Mississippi, which from there we could build, a metropolis for ourselves where we can feel finally once and for all free of all the racism and discrimination that we suffer as a people in this country every day, and that we suffer from as a people, and not only that we suffer from, but that we are mentally as well as physically impacted by every day in this country as a people. Since racism in certain parts of the United States, like even here where I'm at in Nebraska, has been declared, a mental health crisis, you know, because of the way that it's impacted so-called people of color like myself and many others among the 44 million of us who are dark-skinned descendants of slaves born in this country. And, every day we wake up, we smell it, we see it, as well as we live it, and we definitely do need a safe haven where we could be protected from this. Enough is enough. And as I sit up and watch these silly videos, like with debates going on in the conscious community between people like Eric Muhammad versus Chief Sandiali or Kamara Sandiata, who had a debate the other day about their teachings and all this as far as Pan-Africanism and Nation Islam teachings, but really never touched on no solid solution that would end our almost seeming like forever lasting suffering that we experience every day in this country as a people. I, am glad that I've chosen to be a part of a platform, although which is Reality Temples on Earth / Operation Exodus Mississippi, which don't get many views as channels like Eric Muhammad's channel, which is called Temple 15, or that don't get as many views like Sonetta's channel, or that don't get too many interviews as Sarah Sue Seti's channel, or that don't get as many interviews as Polite channel, or that don't get as many views as Young Farah, or that don't get as many views as Dr. Boyce Watkins channel, that don't get as many views as other so-called pro-blacks in the conscious community. And of course, who may not even be, experiencing their channels being monitored. And I ain't just talking about by YouTube or Google, but I'm talking about even being monitored by so-called COINTELPRO, which is now known as Homeland Security. It's because they ain't talking about nothing. They're not saying anything, that's threatening to the establishment, or that's a opposition against the status quo in this country that will appear threatening to the status quo. But platforms like Reality Temple on Earth / Operation Exodus Mississippi, which is the same platform, although with different channels, but is the same platform, we stand to be more of a threat than those platforms, because we're talking about something like taking control of a state through its politics, just so that our people can have a better existence in this country, and that we could be protected in a place of sanctuary safety, like the immigrants who come over here from across south of the border and who are able to enter into these different cities across America, as safe sanctuary cities that will protect them from the federal government. You see what I'm saying? But we as indigenous black Americans don't have those same protections. And this is why the Operation Exodus Mississippi campaign is so important, and this is why we're going to keep on pushing this ideal until some finally crack where this can actually get off the ground and become a reality. Because now we got brothers like Charles M. Blow, who wrote a book that's being given major platforms to speak from, like on CNN, PBS, you know what I'm saying? And who also happens to be a writer for the New York Times, and as well as the fact that he wrote a book that I just named, which title I just named, and I and he's talking the same language. Matter of fact, which sounds almost identically the same like Operation Exodus Mississippi. But the only difference is when he talks about blacks needing to go back to the South and take control, he's talking about taking control of the whole of the whole South. He's not talking about specifically starting with one area as an experiment, which is taking control of one state, at least at a time, like we're talking about in the case of taking control of a state like Mississippi, you know, where we could work our way from that point to where once we see that that ideal can work there in Mississippi, then we can move on to establishing that ideal as becoming a success in the other nearby states in that region like Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and through in other places in that region where there are majority of black people at, And of course, we do need to take control of the resources because see, now like one of our brothers who was our elder a wise elder, as I may also say, Dr. Omar Shamsuddin said, we got to take this opportunity and seize this moment by taking control of a state in the South and moving toward to taking control of more states in the South as well politically before these Caucasians decide to buy up all the equity in the land in the South and before the immigrants start populating throughout the South, which at that point then would be a complete detrimental blow to our agenda that we're trying to, execute from this platform of Operation Exodus Mississippi. And, we need to make that move now. And I just also want to point out too that, we have to understand and realize that just like we always talk about from our Operation Exodus Mississippi campaign platform that, we will have a safe haven where if you're getting tired of the racial discrimination in places like New York, Chicago, Michigan, California, if you're getting tired of the racial oppression and discrimination in places like Portland, Oregon, and like where I'm at here in the Midwest, then you will have a safe haven place to go to, like Mississippi, where you will be protected from that, and where you can finally live free and exist like a real human being. You know what I'm saying? And with that said, I wanted to point out something that in California, which I just got done watching on a video on Willie D's live channel, where he was talking about some black customer patriots patrons were being discriminated against by a restaurant manager in Chicago who of course happened to be a Caucasian. And it was a situation where, they were told to sit outside at the tables that did not have you know, a umbrella over them covering the table, which is why everybody was sitting inside the restaurant while they were, patronizing the restaurant as customers. And so, because of the COVID protocols and stuff, normally that's why people would have to sit outside the restaurant and stuff like that. But when it came down to the fact that everybody else was in the restaurant, you know, being served as customers while they were sitting inside, the black customers decided that they would sit inside the restaurant and was then, told after this white manager, like I say, rushed over to their table and told them they had to go sit outside. So at that point, they was wondering why they had to go sit outside when it was no problem that everybody else was allowed to sit inside the restaurant. And of course, from my understanding, according to Willie D, wasn't too many people even wearing masks up in the restaurant. Okay. And so, of course, by right, this was identified as an act of discrimination. And I experienced that definitely here in the so-called white state of Nebraska. And of course, a similar situation took place, I remember a couple of months ago, where I was at in a student lodge area in a building on the University of Nebraska campus here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And it was a Caucasian, and also a Caucasian who I have known for a few years since I've been here. And me and him had a few run-ins previously in the past, of course. And of course, I realized that he was a racist as he came off as being, and I called him out on it several times, and when he approached me about covering my face up with a mask while I was talking to one of his co-employees, while I was sitting down in the student lounge area, first of all, I told him he didn't have nothing to say to me from my last previous encounters. He didn't have no reason saying nothing to me. And if he felt a certain type of way, like he usually does, then he should have went and got security or something. You know what I'm saying? But he didn't have no reason to say nothing to me. Point blank, period. Because he had once or a couple of times called the police on me. He had called the campus police on me, and all kind of stuff, as to try to even get me barred up off the campus. So it was issues, that went on. And of course, behind that, but the fact of the matter was that it don't even matter what the reason was that he called the police. What the reason was is that basically he was doing it out of the mere fact of being a racist. It's just that simple because of our past encounters. And the fact that I heard even by other Caucasians that he called me a N-word behind my back. And when I confronted him about it, of course, he denied it. But he denied it with emotions to the point where the conversation kind of got a little out of hand, where it was no longer a rational conversation because of the fact that I had confronted him and he just couldn't accept the fact with me confronting him about the accusations of him calling me the N-word. And so, I basically told him that if you don't like black people, then you have no business saying nothing to me. And that's basically what I told him. And so anyway, you know, this particular last time we ran into each other in the university campus in a park which I really don't go to, unfortunately, no more, to just avoid a situation where things might get worse, because I could only deal with so much when it come to dealing with these races. And I know I'm in this place where I'm not from, and I know that what the elements I'm dealing with and the situation as far as the decks being stacked against me because of my color and the fact that it is not too many black people here in this area, would definitely make me look or stand out as being a person on the wrong end of the stick, of course. So, I deal with the situation strategically like I have to protect myself, but at the same time, with that said, when he confronted me about putting a mask on over my face, and I said, you see these other people up in here, especially who had happened to be college students, okay, that was sitting in there and didn't have no masks on at all. At least I had my mask, wrapped around my ears while all I had to do was pull my mask up, okay? But at the same time, these other people who happened to be the same color as he was did not have a mask on, period. So why is he saying anything to me in the first place in that case and ain't saying nothing to them at all? You know what I'm saying? And then he ain't even in no position. He's just a janitor or a maintenance person, and why I go to this local community college here in town, which is another school institution here in this area, I sense the same racial hostility coming from people that's working in his similar type of occupation on that college campus, So this is what you got to deal with. And this is why it's definitely necessary that we get a safe haven for us as black Americans to protect us from this type of stuff as far as discrimination, racial profiling, you know what I'm saying? And we're gonna have to. And eventually, because at one time or so, or a couple of times I did live down south, and as a matter of fact, before I irrationally made the decision to come out here to this part of the country a few years ago, I was based in the South, But I plan on going back down south, and this time further deep south, because that's what the more and the more deeper south you get is where the more and the more our population as indigenous black Americans are. And, we are the majority down south than in any other region part of the country. And like our brother, Dr. Umar Shamsuddin said, that most of these other parts, like up north, where I'm originally from, like Michigan, and like the East Coast, West Coast, and all that, and in this part of the Midwest where I'm at, in the great so-called Great Plains, which is here in Nebraska and others like so other surrounding areas near Nebraska, these places here don't want us. We're not wanted. And like Malcolm X said, why would you want to be in a place where you're not wanted? You know? And so, black people and indigenous black Americans who I'm particularly referring to have to come to that realization. You see what I'm saying? That we not wanted. We not wanted here. We just ain't wanted. And we need to be among each other. And I know that's because, I was under that mentality even more recently ago that I didn't I don't need to be around other black people to feel protected. But at the end of the day, just like any other human being, I make mistakes in my own judgment or prejudgment, and which leads to the decisions that could be consequential, you see. So, I realized that even in that misjudgment, which also is, connected with the fact that I made a mistake, even coming out this way a few years ago, like I talked about on our live video podcast, as of yesterday, that I thought that I was coming out here for the purpose of being able to maintain some type of kind of environmental tranquility, which, of course, didn't seem to work out so well as to the way I was looking for it to work out, because I wasn't in a city or a major city where it's more blacks at, and where we're labeled statistically as being in the most high crime areas, when of course the majority who are still Caucasian in this country are known to committing the most crimes that are committed in the United States, you see. But however, I realized, like I said, that I made a mistake, and when that time of opportunity come, like I said, I would rectify that when it's time for me to leave Nebraska, which will be soon, and I definitely don't ever plan on coming back to a state like this, especially where it is majority of people that don't look like me and that don't share my same common goal or causes as a human being, of course, which is as a result is due to racism and discrimination. And like I said before, because they feel that they are the superior and that I am inferior, which they have always thought of us as indigenous black Americans going on 500 years, And as I've been living out here around this type of white supremacist racist population, which is majority, out here in this part of the country, I really feel like I've learned a lot more. And this has even taught me a lot more about dealing with racism, even than when I was living in certain other parts of the country, and even including in the U.S. South, And but one thing about the U.S. South, I could say this here, and like even brother Charles M. Blow, who I just mentioned, the brother that just wrote this book, who was saying basically the same thing that we've been saying for the last 3 years from the Mississippi campaign platform, that the South has really eased in terms a little bit as far as its aggressive racism historically goes, but at the same time, it's still the South, like it's always been. Okay, and where we find ourselves at as Black people who are living in the North and out here in the Midwest, where I'm at, and out west, is we're finding the same style of racism that our people always knew about experiencing in the South, especially even if you go as far as back to the 1950s and 60s. Well, that type of style of racism is definitely here because these people here, especially even in this part of the country, is backwards. And they, as the Nation of Islam would say, is not updated on the modern times. So, basically, in other words, they are more covertly but blatant with their racism as well. You see, and and so this is why it's so important that we actually you know relocate back to the South. And although I will be moving or relocating out of Nebraska soon, but I won't be going straight back down south. But eventually, that's what I plan on doing. Be, even upon me relocating to my next destination, where I will be around more people that look like me. But even from there, my goal is definitely to relocate back to the South because that's really the home base for the indigenous Black Americans because of our deep rooted slave heritage experience in that part of the country, and because of this country being built on the backs of our ancestors in that part of the country. And because of that fact that our ancestors went through 300 some years of free slave labor, picking cotton and sugar cane, which upon their backs made this country even powerful like it is today. We're owed that due to their free hard slave labor. We're owed that. And we have to take that. It's not going to be given to us like the Nation of Islam in the 60s asked the white man to do, as far as giving them at least 10 of those southern states. No, we have to take a state. We have to take control of a state, is what I'm saying. Politically, not take over. I'm talking about taking control of the politics of a state. And in turn, at the same time, we're taking back our liberation as well as our reparations because they've demonstrated over time that they're not simply going to hand out a written check to us. We got to take our liberation. And it's just that simple, and relocating back to the South definitely is important, and starting with taking control of a state like Mississippi. And, we definitely got to push this. We got to keep pushing this. And like I say, until ground breaks, until we successfully score a groundbreaking situation where it would allow us to actually end up being successful with this project, because all we have to do is commonly come collectively together and unite and put our petty differences aside, like Eric Muhammad and brother Chief Kamaru Sandiata. We have to leave our differences, our religious ideology, and our other different type of ideology differences to the side and stop these frivolous debates on social media and come together and get on board with this Mississippi Soul Train, like our brother, Soul Brother Angel Snup Snup 7 would say, you know, and make this become of a new reality of our existence. Because other than that, at this point, we're headed on the straight narrow path of extermination, you know, and and we are finding, and that's 44 plus million in this country, we are actually facing the same situation that the ancient Native Americans faced upon the Europeans' arrival as colonists on the continent, which is today called North America, which it was said projectedly or around projectedly that it was 69 million of them. I think, yeah, 70 or 69 million of them. And they mostly all ended up getting wiped out. And of course, look at them now. Just like the Native American Indians I see out here in the Midwest here in Nebraska. You know, they in different pockets, you know, around the country, but it's very few of them. Whether they here, Oklahoma, up in the South or North Dakota or Montana somewhere, you know what I'm saying? They are, not even a third of the population. They're not, matter of fact, even a quarter of the population. But prior to the European colonists, arrival to America, it was 60 some million of them, you know, and it was even tribes of them wiped out whose history was totally erased, that we would never even know existed because their entire history was erased. You see, so, I mean, we as indigenous black Americans, whether we got part Native American in us, whether we got part African in us, part West Indian in us, and of course, some Caucasian blood in us, you know what I'm saying? We could find ourselves being in a exact position if we do not, you know, actually do something about taking our liberation, you know, and it's just that simple, you know, and I just feel like at this time and point that when I even look at social media and I see how we're being discriminated against as well as regentrified, like in places like Washington D.C., up in New York City, in Portland, Oregon, and Oakland, you know what I mean, and in places like in L.A., around the L.A. area in Southern California, and also where gentrification has been going on all along, even like here in Lincoln, Nebraska, which I found out since I've been living here. It was that they had a black neighborhood here locally in town, and it was known as T-Town. Well, because of gentrification, that only became history, and it's not even a replica of what a black community is supposed to look like because of regentrification. Just like historically, Georgetown and Washington, D.C. was a black community, but was, of course, because of gentrification, which is why if you black and you in Georgetown, you just stuck out like a thorn, unless you a college student in that area or whatever, But like I said before, because of regentrification is why we are being ran out of a lot of these northern cities and cities here in the Midwest as well as out on the West Coast. And so definitely, and of course, some blacks who have become wise to that situation have fled to the South, and it's best that more of us, as possible, take that wise choice to flee to the South because that's all we got. That's our last hope shot as far as political as well as economical survival. Like our brother Charles M. Blow has been nationally on the media, in the media talking about, far as being allowed interviews on these Caucasian major media platforms. And so to talk about this, and however, we need to understand that that's the best thing for us to do is take control of a state where we have a protective, hate, safe haven for us and our people. Because right now we're open for all out slaughter. It's like they say in the animal kingdom and the wildlife kingdom, we're fair game. We're actually fair game. Anything can happen to us because we don't have no type of kind of safety net, or geographical safe haven protection to surround us against this onslaught of racism and discrimination and mass incarceration and housing and job discrimination that constantly keeps on plaguing us as a people in this country. Discrimination even in education and all this other stuff, which that Civil Rights Act was supposed to protected us against, but unfortunately is benefiting others, and even including those immigrants more than it's benefiting us. And as a matter of fact, I remember a brother in our live podcast talk made mention that when they passed that 1964, 1965 Civil Rights Act bills, that it was supposed to have been specifically only for black Americans. But of course, knowing how, clever, you know what I'm saying, the cracker is, they put a clause in there saying that this law also applied to all minorities. So there you go. And of course, as we see today in 2021, as a result, everyone else is benefiting from this but black Americans. It's not because of the so-called false consensus that black Americans are not trying to benefit from it because of us being labeled as being lazy or shiftless or whatever. It's because of the stumbling blocks that prevent us from even benefiting off the laws of the Civil Rights Act bill, which was supposed to be protections for us. You see? So there we go, right there. That includes, along with all other implications in this country, that it was never meant for us as a people to rise above the ceiling, because they always wanted us to remain in a certain underclass, subservient position. And long as we kept settling for less because we, offered a few trinkets, whereas $100 some million basketball contract to run up and down the basketball court, bouncing the ball or running up and down the football field, you know, that ain't getting us nowhere, and whether we got the status of a Oprah Winfrey, a Will Smith, a Jay-Z, or a Beyonce. You know what I'm saying? You know, or a Gal, King, whatever her name is. You know, and other people like them, like Michael Jordan. You know, Floyd Mayweather. You know, and the list goes on. You know, and I mean, all 44 plus million of us cannot be that. And even like I said, in their cases, they're still slaves. You know, they may have a little more money than most of us as 44 plus million black Americans, but they still are equally looked upon by the status quo, just like the rest of us as 44 plus indigenous black Americans. That's why we hear about known famous sports athletes and celebrities getting stopped in the streets by the police while being harassed and racially profiled. You see what I'm saying? So they money ain't protecting them from potentially taking a bullet and not waking up from it. You see what I'm saying? So I mean, it's all kind of implications that this what we got set up as a project is for all of 44 plus million, no matter what background and walk of life we come from. And if we could show that we're serious in this undertaking of this project, people like Oprah Winfrey, Will Smith will be willing to donate a few of their resources to help us to actually get this project, you know, further elevated to where we can actually have something, that we could call our own as a people. And I ain't talking about the tiddly bit stuff like having your own business, having your own restaurant, having your own company or whatever. I'm talking about us having control of a whole entire state, which all implications come behind that, like us having our own national guard. So in case the federal government want to make a move on us, we got some real protection that where we could even, form alliances with other countries that will have our, back when the federal government decide they want to make a move on us. You see what I'm saying? I'm talking about stuff like that, like we've been talking about for the last 3 years from this platform. You know, I mean, we just don't realize what major benefits unimaginably will come along with us taking control of a state. And it could be done. It's legal. That is even the greatest part about it. It's legal. Like even our brother Charles M. Blow said, or was to have said, it is legal. It is actually legal. Legal. So, I mean, and it's the most easiest route for us to take toward achieving our liberation, the freedom that we never knew in this country as a people. See what I'm saying? So, with that said, I wasn't planning on being, you know, uh, speaking all night because I do have to get me some rest and I do have to begin my new day in a few hours or whatever. But I just needed to put this out there, you know what I'm saying, as a, or as a, basic, general discussion, just to let you know that, we need to, get on board with this situation with Operation Exodus Mississippi. So we could, take our freedom. And yes, some of us may have to die. Some of us may have to even face prison, whatever the case is. Freedom never came, without, consequences being involved. You can ask the so-called founding fathers about that. Of those American colonists that was fighting against the British to obtain their independence. you know, I mean, this is real. Freedom comes with a price. Nowhere in the history of this planet Earth has anybody among humanity or any group of people among humanity have ever got real freedom through just sitting back waiting on it. We got to take it, and it's just that simple. Because, I mean, look, it's many of us dying anyway. Thousands upon thousands of us, whether we dying at the hands of some racist police, gunning us down, or racially profiling us, or trumping charges up against us, sending us, a lot of us to prison on trumped up charges, where we got to face during the rest of our life for crimes that we was framed with, and all other type of crazy stuff. So I mean, you know what I'm saying? We dealing with a whole lot of stuff. But we have to, you know, you're not, and it don't even take that many. It don't take all 44 million of us. It just take a very few of us to make it happen. Where the rest of the 44 million will, catch on, and once they see this is real serious, and that we're doing something that actually will bring in a new reality, then they would follow along because they'll see that this is real and it's just not talk. That's why we got to get out of this mode with talking and put in action and stop all this egotism because of our disagreements and get down to the business of helping to liberate our people from an oppressor. And with that said, I'm gonna be Audi 5000.